Before we could proceed as well, let me firstly introduce the panel that I'm with. I'm not alone. I'm with honorable members on the table who are here to also oversee the process of submissions towards the Electoral Amendment Bill. So I would start introducing from my far left, Honorable Tito, Honorable Kanyile, and from my far right, Honorable Lekhwas.
Re lamogetse bagaetsho ga ke tsamaye ke le one nna ke tlabe ke le modulasetulo wa gompieno jaana ke nna mme Enfia Ramolobeng modulasetulo wa gompieno so morago ga dikamogelo tsa re di dirile mo go lona ke kopa go lo itsise gore ke tsamaya le bomang ke na le fano fa motlotlegi Honorable Tito and then le motlotlegi Khanyile mme ka fa mojeng wa me ke na le motlotlegi Nokwasi
Lekhwasi.
motlotlegi Lekhwasi.
For a moment, I thought you were saying no was. Before we can, I'll bring forth the mayor of the municipality to come and formally welcome all of us. I would like to acknowledge the speaker, Meselwani Khiba.
Pele re simolola go amogela ra toropo gore a tla gore amogela fano fa ke tla rata go lo itsise Meselwane Khiba.
I've just been made aware that Meselwane has gone outside.
Go bonala.
And the speaker of Ngwathe municipality, Neheng Mopedi,
And then me Musa Khotla me Moheng Mopedi
and the mayor of Tswelopele municipality, Kinalemang Pupunisi or Pupurisi. Hey, the handwriting here. Pupunsi. Were you wanting to be a doctor in your life? Okay. Did she stand? Oh, okay.
ke me Pupunsi.
The mayor of Ngwathe municipality, Victoria De Beer.
Me Victoria De Beer le na ke be ya rawa Victoria municipality.
Ngwathe.
Oh Mangwathe. All right.
Ngwathe municipality.
Ke Mwathe municipality ne ke ra toropo wa Mwathe municipality ra leboga.
The council whip, Ma Jereman.
Ma Jereman yana ke council whip.
Okay. And all councillors present with us who have not mentioned. But I would like to bring forward the mayor who would introduce, who would welcome all of us before we start with the session. Mr. Toy Mokatsane.
So re tlo go
Kindly
bitsa-
please come to the podium to welcome us.
o ka tla ka fa pele go tla go re amogela Rre Paul Mokatane re amogetse le bakhanselara botlhe ba bangwe ba re sa bitsa maina a bone.
Is the mayor here? Okay. I'm made aware that the mayor needs 10 minutes to be here. Can we kindly get the speaker to welcome us? The speaker went out. Aw, Nkosi yami. Majereman, Council Whip, kindly come and welcome us, because this is your municipality. We can't ask a mayor outside the municipality to welcome us.
Thank you very much, the chair of the session and your entourage. I would like to firstly welcome you from the parliament and also welcome the executive mayors present here, Comrade Victoria Dibier and Comrade, Councillor Putzing. Also welcome all the speakers from different municipalities and the council whips, and all councillors present. But most of all, I would like to welcome all the community members who are present here. Le amohelehile mona na lapeng mona Moqhaka. Ke a leboha.
Thank you.
Ke a go leboga modulasetulo mmogo le batsamai ka wena, so re le amogelesegile mono go tswa ko parlamenteng, mme ke rata gore gape re amogele le rateropomogolo e le Victoria Dibier yo o leng fano le rona gompieno jaana, mme le dibui tsotlhe tse di leng teng go tswa ko mafelong a farologaneng a mmasepala, so lotlhe lo amogelesegile mono gompieno jaana, re a leboga.
Thank you. Let me also acknowledge amongst ourselves who have support staff from Parliament that assisted with getting this meeting today to be in effect. And also acknowledge the interpreters on the far left who would also interpret according to speakers' languages so that it assists us with the meeting. My far right there, we have technicians who are dealing with sound communications, acknowledging all support staff present with us today.
Re bua gape re amogela le badiri ka rona ba ba re tshegetsang go tswa ko parlamenteng ba ba tlileng fano le rona, ra ba leboga. Re leboga le go amogela gape batoloki le baranodi ba rona ba ba ntseng fano fa ba ba tlileng go ranolela go ya ka dipuo tse di tlabeng di dirisiwa ke lona fano gompieno jaana mo mosong ono. Re be re leboge gape le botlhe ba ba dirang ka tsa modumo sound bao ba leng fano go tla go tsweledisa tiro ya rona mmogo.
We're here today to solicit views from the public in relation to the Electoral Amendment Bill based on the court outcomes. We're here as the panel to solicit views or submissions that you would be making as the community or public. We're not here to respond nor seek clarity questions or responding to any outside matter that does not relate to the Electoral Amendments Bill. Therefore, any matters or any issues that you would have that deals or relates to service delivery, kindly liaise with your ESCOs, your municipal councillors, your mayors who are present here. But this meeting will not, unfortunately, deal with those matters.
So re fano fa go tla go utlwa maikutlo a lona ka molaotlhomo ono o re tlileng go tlotla ka one fano gompieno, mme se re tlileng go se dira ga re tle go araba dipotso kgotsa go leletla gore le botse dipotso dipe tse di tlhokang dikarabo. Re tlile go fela go reetsa se re tlileng go se bua e le gore re tla re kgone go tsweledisetsa thulaganyo ya molaotlhomo ono pele o mametleletsweng, mme ha e le gore le na le dipotso dingwe tse di sa amaneng le molaotlhomo wa rona, re tlile go kopa gore le buisane le bakhanselara ba lona ba e leng gore go ba ka tswa ba le teng fano gompieno jaana, e nne bone ba batla di thusang ka selo batlang go se itse.
All views that will be expressed here will be taken into consideration when finalization of this bill would be done.
So dintlha tsotlhe tse di tlileng go di tlhagisa fano fa di tlile go akanyediwa le go tsewa tsia fa kokwana ene e sena go wediwa.
Based on the background of the bill, on 11 June 2020, the Constitutional Court in the New Nation Movement NPC and others versus the President of the Republic of South Africa and others 2020. The New Nation Movement case declared the Electoral Act of 1998, Act number 73 of 1998, to be unconstitutional to the extent that it requires that adult citizens may be elected to the National Assembly and the provincial legislatures only through their membership of political parties. The declaration of unconstitutionality was suspended for a period of 24 months to afford Parliament an opportunity to remedy the defect in the Electoral Act, giving rise to the unconstitutionality.
Go ya ka ditshwetso tsa kgotlatshekelo fano fa e leng ya molaotheo e ne ya ntsha katlholo ya yona ya a New Nation Movement le ba bangwe mmogo le go presidente wa Republic ya Africa Borwa le ba bangwe itsise fano gore molaotlhopo o ne ba rena wa 1998 e leng molao wa bo 73 ga o mo molaong go ya ka molaotheo ga go le jwa karolwana nngwe ya tong e ne e amana le kgang ya gore bangwe ba ka nna ba tlhagisiwa fano fa jaaka bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi gore ba go ya go tsenela ditlhopho mo kokoanong mo setšhaba kgotsa mo teng ga kgotlateopeo-molao ya porofense ya rona ba dira jalo ka boleloko jwa bone go makoko otlhe a dipolotiki ka jalo ge kgotlatshekelo e ile ya bona gore molaotheo ono o e o dirisetse go laela palamente gore e baakanye dikarolo dingwe tse di ganeditsweng mo go ona mo sebakeng sa dikgwedi di le 24 e leng go tloga ka 11 June 2020 mme seno se e nna kgang ya gore di tla tsaya lobaka lwa June 2020 go ya go fitlha go June 2022.
The Minister of Home Affairs introduced the bill to Parliament on the 10th January 2022. The committee published the bill in all official languages for comments on 21st January 2022, and the closing date was on the 21st February 2022.
Ka jalo tona ile ya romela molaotlhomo ono o ya kwa lephateng la rona la merero ya selegae gore go tlotla ka ona mme ka June 10 2022 gore o lejwe ka dipuo tse di farologaneng le gore go tlotla ka one mme letlha le go ne go tswalela ka lona kgotsa e leng closing date lone e ne e tla nna ka di 10 tsa June 2020 e ka di 21 tsa February 2022.
Based on the court outcome, briefly, the draft bill proposes an amendment to the Electoral Act to include independent candidates to partake in the national and provincial legislatures.
mme go ya ka dipholo tse di neng tsa bona di-results tsa teng go ne ga dirwa tshwetso ya gore go ne le bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi gore ba itlhagisa jaaka bontlhopheng ba ba tla tsenelang kgaisano ya dikgetho mo kokoanong mo setšhaba mmogo le mo mafapheng a kgotlatheomolao.
The ground rules before we proceed to submissions is that let's kindly put our phones on silent. We know we might receive an important call or would be needed urgently somewhere else, but let's respect the meeting and put all our phones on silent so that we don't disturb speakers on the platform who would be making submissions.
Ka jalo re kopa gore ka tswetswe re dire gore difounu tsa rona di nne silence ra itse gore lo ka tswa lo amogela difounu tse di botlhokwa kgotsa lo batliwa go le gongwe bate re kopa gore lo di timele di seke tsa ita ope tsebe le gore re tle re seke ra ita tsebe yone thulaganyo e re le mo gone eno gompieno jaana e le gore gape re tla re kgone go tlotla le ba batla beng ba bua.
We must equally encourage tolerance towards one another, especially when expressing different views towards the submissions, and respect each candidate or each person that would be presenting or making a submission.
Ka jalo re kopa gore re tlotlane bagaetsho ha mongwe a bua fano fa tlotlang maikutlo a gagwe le rona re tlotlane ha ntse a ntsha ditshwaelo tsa gagwe fela jaaka le rona lo batla gore go dirwe ka lona.
Therefore, I would note hands that would want to speak towards the Electoral Amendment Bill. I would start with the first round of hands. I'm not sure how many chairs are put in the middle. How many chairs are this? It's 8 chairs. I will take first round of 8 hands. Those 8 hands that I would be noting, they must come sit in the middle. That's how the speakers would be identified.
Ka jalo re kopa matsogo bagaetsho le tsholetse matsogo ha ile gore le batla go bua ke ditulo tse 8 ka mantswe a mankarolo ya rona ya ntlha e tla tsa batho ba le 8 and then ha o sena go supiwa o tle o nne mo gare ga sengwe sa ditulo tse di fa gare ga molao wa rona.
Can I kindly get hands that would want to make submissions
So
that we start with the meeting?
A ba ba batlang go bua mo kopanong ya rona.
You'll be the first one with a peach jacket. Would be the second one. Kindly, if I note your hand, proceed to the chairs
So how's that
according to the number I've given you.
Tla go stilo go ya ka palo e ba go fileng yone dipalo di simolla kwa
Would be
pele
the
go ya
third
kwa morago.
one with a white t-shirt. Would be the fourth one. You'd be the fifth one with a blue shirt. There are no hands. 6th one, Majoro. The first round takes 8 hands, and I've noted 6. The 7th one with a red cap of the SACP, and the 8th hand. You
And
can
then-
go at the back. That's the first round.
So eo ke karolo ya rona ya ntlha, batho ba barobedi ba felletse mo go yona.
Kindly note that each speaker, when he or she makes submissions, must indicate their name, which organization or NPO, NGO, CBO they belong to, whether they accept the Electoral Amendment Bill based on the court outcome or reject the bill and make submissions or amendments to it. Thank you. The first speaker, you can come to the podium.
Ka jalo ela tlhoko gore o ikitsise pele gore leina la gago ke mang, o emetse mokgatlo ofe ke NPO, NGO kgotsa sepe fela, o bo o tlhalose gore a o a amogela o dumalana le molaotlhomo ono kgotsa o ganetsana le ona, o bo ka simolla go ntsha ngongorego ya gago.
Amandla. Awethu. Ka lebitso ke nna re Thabile Ponyane, ke hlaha Ward 14, Moqhakeng, municipality wa Moqhaka. So, nna ke tlo hanana le the bill. We all know that the ANC supports the PR system in terms of the race, the language, the gender, the class, and other stuff. So the problem with the long ballot caused by many independent can result in a very long ballot paper. A multi-page ballot is a very problem for voters, the IEC, and the parties. Voters will need to search for their own parties and their independents. They will need much time to vote, and the IEC will need bigger budget for printing, distribution, and stuff. The counters will need more time for counting. We are very concerned that the amendments should find a way not to waste money, ballot, time, and make election too complicated and impractical. We have to be very careful that if voters find it difficult to vote and find their preferred choice on a ballot, the election will not reflect the will of the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ke a leboha ka bokgutshwanyane lebitso la ka ke re Thabile Ponyane ke tswa Ward 14 mona Kroonstad tlasa Moqhaka municipality ke hanana le biliena ra tseba hore ANC e dumellana le tsela ena ya ho vota ya PR ya dikgetho ya PR empa nna ke bona mathatana ballot paper e telele e nang le bonkgetheng ba bangata e tlo qaka batho ha ba se ke ba tseba hore na ba voutela mang ba fone ho le thata ho fumana batho ba ba voutelang ba ba batlang ho ba kgetha IEC le yona mmoho le mekga e fapaneng di tlo imelwa haholoholo tabeng ya tjhelete tshenyo ya nako le ho hlokeha ha basebetsi ba bang ba bangata mme hape taba ena e tlo ba taba e nang le moferefere o mongata mme ka tsela e jwalo sephetho sa teng e tla ba hore ho keke ha fumanwa e le dikgetho tse senang tshekamelo efe kapa efe tse nkileng maikutlo a batho kaofela tse nepahetseng. Ke a leboha.
Thank you. Second speaker.
No, thanks very much, Honorable Chairperson. My name is Sizwe Mbalo. I'm the convener of the ANC Fezile Tabi region. Chair, I stand here to represent the views as expressed by the Regional Committee of the African National Congress in this particular region where you are. I think what is important, Chair, is that as the region, we support the bill, but of course, with certain amendments that we propose, they should actually be considered. Mine in particular, Chair, I'll be talking to the PR system vis-a-vis the constituency-based approach. As my starting point, Chair, I just want to emphasize to yourself and also to the honorable members and to the House that as the ANC, you uphold the supremacy of the Constitution and the rule of law. That in pursuance of the Constitutional Court order, the ANC would like to submit the following. One, that we support the PR system. But however, one will also elaborate where we have serious concerns if time allows. I'm not even sure how many minutes or so that I'm allowed to speak. Is it 3 or 5? Oh, okay, thank you very much. Firstly, Chair, I would like to draw the attention of honorable members in the House to subsection 19, subsection 1, 2, and 3 of the Constitution, but mainly subsection 3, which to me is very important. But I will not go in detail in terms of that particular subsection, Chair. I think you are privy to know what I'm referring to. Subsection 3B refers that any member of the public is allowed by the Constitution to stand for political office. I think, Chair, historically, the ANC has always supported the PR system. And this can actually date back since from the establishment of municipalities and also the national and provincial government. We have always advocated that minority rights must always be protected and that all small parties must have a way to find an expression in any decision-making body, either at the national or at the local or the provincial level. Our belief is that the PR system allows better representation of all disadvantaged groups or marginalized groups in our communities because they will have an opportunity to participate through their own representation and also to make their voice known. And such a representation will make a very important and fundamental change in the political body in South Africa. That the PR system ensures that parties, and including the independents, will appeal to their core supporters. Our view, Chair, is that through the PR system, at least people will have a right or many choices to make in terms of who they are supposed to support to represent them at any particular level. And that will also afford the independents an opportunity also to find an expression amongst the electorate. Our concern is that the constituency system make it difficult to reach the same level of diverse representation. Our view, Chair, is that the constituency system really limits many choices that the electorate might have in terms of making sure that they elect or choose the persons that they would like them to represent in Parliament. However, Chair, we also want to make it and to be registered that we support option 1 of the Ministerial Advisory Committee. I don't think, Chair, I will go in detail, but I think, Chair, should be privy to understand the content of that particular option 1 that I'm referring to. Because we don't want uncertainties, we don't want legal challenges at the end of the day. Therefore, we are raising this particular issue so that they should be considered by the committee or any authorized body that will actually be looking at this particular amendment. Chair, I think any system has its own advantages and disadvantages. And also this one, in this particular bill, we have also very serious concerns about some practicalities of some of the proposals as contained. in the bill. But however, we urge the Home Affairs Committee that is actually entrusted with this particular bill to consider some of these challenges that are there in the bill carefully, as they may cause unintended consequences that can harm our democracy. And we believe that this bill has been processed. It will actually enjoy some sort of further investigation and make sure that is in line with the Constitution, is in line with the legal provisions, and that as we enter a stage where the bill has to be ascended by the President, at least all other issues has been raised in option 1 of that particular report have been attended to. Thank you very much, Chair, and also to honorable members and the House at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ke a leboha. Lebitso la ka ke Sizwe Mbalo. Ke Sizwe Mbalo. Ke tswa ke convener ya ANC hona mona tikolong ya Fezile Dabi, mme ke dumellana le se se signwang ke bili ena. Mme maikutlo a ka ke a ANC mona lebatoweng la Fezile Dabi. Ke tlo dumellana le bili ena empa ka diphetoho tse itseng. Re dumellana le PR system. Hobane ha re utlwisisa molaotheo ke ona o re o hlomphang ka ho fetisisa, mme ha o batle hore ho be le batho kapa mokgwa o hatellwang. Ke batla ho tshehetsa PR system empa ke batla ho hlokomedisa komiti ena ya Palamente ka subsection 19, subsection 1, 2 and 3 haholo subsection 3, 3B haholo ere setho sepe kapa sefe setjhabeng e ka bang kgetheng bakeng sa ho kena mmusong kapa ho ba le boemedi mmusong. ANC ha e sa le tshehetsa hore bohle ba kenyeletswe mmusong le mekga e menyenyane mmoho le bohle ba neng ba qheletse thoko, mme re kgolwa hore tshebetso ena ya PR system e tla etsa hore seo se kgone ho etsahala. Mme ka tsela e jwalo ho fuwe bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng hore le bona ba kgone ho ba ditho tsa mmuso, e le ntho e sa dumellweng ke molao wa dikgetho jwale ka ha o e mona jwale tjenana. Ka hoo haholoholo rona re le mokgwa wa ANC boemeding ba ka mona Fezile Dabi, re tshehetsa option 1 ya ministerial committee, e leng komiti ya boemedi parlamenteng, hore ka tsela e jwalo ho ske ha ba le ho se tshepahale kapa ho se tsebe ha molao ona e se ba molao, ho ska ba le tsela eo ka yona mmuso o ka iswang kgotla, empa haholoholo ho lokela ho shejwa tsela ya tshebetso e mo molaong o, hobane mo hong ha o bonahale hantle hore na ho tlo sebetsa jwang ka molao ona. Lona le komiti ya mmuso wa lehaeng, Home Affairs, le lokela hore le shebe diphephetso tse teng moo billing hore di ske tsa thunthetsa democracy, mme ka tsela e jwalo ho tlo sejetswe ka tsela e batlwang le hona ho kgema le molao wa motheo. Ke a leboha.
Thank you. Next speaker, come forth.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak in front of you and make a submission. We reject the bill in its current form. And
Your name?
our name is Selma Kok, and I represent the Ngwate Residents Association. We formed a 15A association for the local elections, and we have 1 seat in council. So we are not a political party, and we will not endeavor to be one. So We are especially focusing on the value of the vote, because where we are standing today, this journey started in 52 already, and in 55 it was enshrined in the Freedom Charter, where everybody has the right to vote and to stand, every adult woman and every adult man. And that finds expression in the votes, and that brings us to where we are today with the Electoral Bill. If you see the Freedom Charter as the basis of our current constitution, in the 1955 it was a Chevy. If you look at it in a vehicle, the basis was there. The people shall govern. All those things have been carried through. In 1998, with the Electoral Bill, Constitution, everything that followed, we got to a minibus. But we could still not choose our driver, right? So what we're propagating is for constituencies that are smaller, that we can choose our own driver. What we see this bill must present to us this luxury bus with a trailer, not discarding extra votes, which is currently the issue. If an independent candidate gets sufficient votes for a seat, the additional votes are discarded. We want the trailer on that bus, on the luxury bus. We want the air conditioning. We don't just want independence painted on the side. We want it, like Albert Luthuli said, again, flesh and blood meaning to words such as democracy, freedom, and liberty. We don't want to see it just on black and white. We want to see it in practice. We don't want good words. There are lots of proportional possibilities. We do not have to conform to the rest of the world. We are a unique nation, and we can do something unique with this bill. Other countries are looking at us. Is 20 pages the best that we can do for a journey that has taken so long? In 2002, already they were looking at a new electoral bill. This is the time that we can rather ask for an extension and put something good on the table that will encompass everybody and the needs and the will of the people, and that the people shall govern. The votes need to be equal. The Constitution says the votes of some do not weigh, this is what happens, the votes of some do not weigh more than the votes of others. That's how it should be. It should be the same. The vote of every voter has a direct influence on the outcome. If votes are discarded, that is not the case. Then everybody who has sacrificed their lives to get to this point, it's for nothing. So we need to look seriously at this. We can do better than this. I believe there are very, very good minds in Parliament, in law, that can help with this. I saw other presentations that were so good. The People's Bill, the majority MAC report. There's so many compromises to be made. We can do better. And I urge you to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dumelang, ke leboela monyetla wa ho ba monana le ho tla fana ka maikutlo a ka. Lebitso la ka ke Selma Cook. Ke ema mona ke hanana le bili ena e beilweng mona kajeno. Rona re na le setulo se le seng parlamenteng, ene ha re mokgatlo wa dipolotiki, mme ha ra shebana le ho ba mokga wa dipolotiki. Tsepamo ya rona e hodima boleng ba vote. Ho tloha kgale ka dilemo tsa di 1950s, ho tloha ka molaotheo ho ya ho Freedom Charter, ho bile le tokelo ya ho vouta, mme re tsitlallela hore tokelo ena e ntshetswe pele hobane molaotheo o re batho ke bona ba tla busa. Ka ho re mabatoa e be bona ba ikgethelang hore na ba buswa ke mang. Re ske re hanana le taba ya hore bile e re ho lashwe divoutu tse ka hodimo ho moedi. Re bona senana e le se sa lokang, mme re bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng e tlameha ho ba karolo ya tshebetso. Ka hoo, re ka kopa hore bili ena e shebisiswe ka matla le ho feta ka mokgwa e leng ka teng hona jwale, e ntlafatswe, e lokiswe hore e be betere ho tshwana le dibili tse ding tse kareng bili ya batho. Mme ka hoo ke le kopa ka matla hore le nahanisise taba ya ho lokisa bili e matlafale ho feta ka mokgwa e leng ka teng ha jwale. Ke a leboha.
Thank you. The fourth speaker, can you kindly come forth? And note, kindly do indicate before you speak your name, which organization you are representing, or CBO, NPO, and do indicate as well, no, you reject or accept the bill, then make amendments to it. Thank you.
Thank you, the Honorable Chair. I'm from South African Communist Party and African National Congress. I'm from the South African Communist Party, member of South African Communist Party, and the member of African National Congress. I fully support the bill, but my question is this, that the process will be fair in terms of selecting the PRs. Selecting the PRs. As the member of the African National Congress, I fully support the bill due to my political party fully support the will of the people in terms of the people must elect and choose their candidates. But on the question of the processes must be fair, I'm asking that in terms of when the people are independent candidates, the PR candidates, when it comes to counting, if those who have smaller votes than the others, do the votes will be combined or what will happen? Because of, I see these processes will have the unfair measures when it comes to counting, whereby we will see most people will register and have will be registered as candidates. Ne? The ballot paper will be large in terms of voters, and in terms of counting, there will be many candidates. In terms of selections, there will be registered political parties and individuals. So when it comes to counting and those who have smaller numbers, I don't know what will happen with them. On the other, I will question this. Is this process going to be only on the local government or on the provincial government? When it comes to the provincial government, whereby we will have the independent candidates, I see this as an attack of democracy by stating this. Our constitution was influenced by the Freedom Charter. Ne? By drafting the constitution, the collective leaderships as the different political parties, they make their own constitutions and then choose their own candidates to go for the elections. As an individual, will you stand being elected by the people with your own constitution without having a constitution, the collective consultation constitution that you will have by your own? So the individuals will be elected by our public. But I see this is as an attack of democracy by allowing the capitalist ideology to get into our democracy, to get in our democratic processes as to be elected in our election process to contest as an candidate. I will close my view.
Thank you. And your questions will go to the committee, will therefore not be able to answer them as we've indicated here, that we will not provide any clarity seeking questions or nor will be responding to any submissions that will be made here. Ours is to take and solicit views that you would be submitting towards the amendment bill. So for the consideration that you have made will go directly to the committee. Thank you.
Ke a leboha modulasetulo. Lebitso la ka ke Daniel, ke setho sa SA Communist Party le setho sa ANC. Ke ema mona ho tshehetsa bili. Empa ke na le dipotso tse mmalwa. Ke batla ho tseba hore na tshebetso e tlo sebediswa na e tla ba le tekatekano ho di-PR. Jwalo ka ke se ke tsholo ke le setho sa ANC, mme ka hoba ANC e tshehetsa bili le nna ke a e tshehetsa. Hobane ANC e tshehetsa tshebetso ya hore batho ba ikgethele bonkgetheng ba bona. Empa ke re tshebetso ena e tlameha ho ba le tekatekano. Moo nang le bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng, ke batla ho tseba hore na ha ho balwa dikgetho, ha nkgetheng a fumane dikgetho tse tlase, na di tla ananelwa na? Ke bona eka ho tla ba le leeme. Hape ke bona tshebetso ena e tlo tla e baka lenane le letelele la bonkgetheng. Ho tlo tla ho nkwa nako e telele ho kgethwa le hobane ho tlo bona le bonkgetheng ba bangata le mekga e mengata ya dipolotiki. Molaotheo o susumeditswe ke Freedom Charter, ka hoo mekga e ikgethela batho ba bona ba batlang ho ba baemele. Jwale ha o le nkgetheng ya ikemetseng, o tlo tla o kgethwa ke batho ntle le ho buisana le bona kapa o seka taba eo pele le bona na? Ha ke phethela nkare bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng ba lokela ho kgethwa ke batho, empa ke bona sena e le tlhaselo ya democracy, e ka ke tshebetso e tlo tsamaiswa ke bo-capitalist. Ke a leboha.
Thank you. The fifth speaker.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My name is Victoria De Beer. I'm from the African National Congress. Chair, I would like to just say that we support the bill, and just with the following inputs that we want to make on the bill itself. Our greatest concern, Chair, is on the long ballot paper that will be created by the independents and other parties. Our concern is that the new system might result into a long process which may become impractical for the voters. And I would like to make the following example, Chair, that in 2019, if you can remember with the national elections, we had about 48 national parties that has registered, and another 200 individuals who stand as independents, which made that ballot paper very long, about 10 pages. Our greatest concern as well with this process of the long ballot is that we need, the amendment must not create a situation where we would really have to spend a lot of money and more time in making the elections complicated and very impractical. Ultimately, if voters find it difficult to vote and find their preferred candidate or the party that they want to vote for on that ballot paper, that means that the elections might as well not be fair because they're struggling. Another issue that we want to put forward, Chair, is that please review the qualification for independent candidates to stand and other parties, new parties. If you don't make it stricter, if you don't make that process stricter, it means that we will have 1,000 people standing as independents and parties, new parties. And I'm also saying this because in 2019, it shows that it's impractical, because in 2019, out of 48 parties or new independents and parties that came in, only 14 made it into parliament. But we took a lot of time in terms of voting. And my last submission, Chair, would be I would want to propose that the new parties who are not yet represented in legislatures and parliament, and that independent candidates should be able to demonstrate that they have voter support out there. They must also show us that they will have a chance to win a seat in parliament or legislature. We also suggest that the threshold should be at least 1/3 of the quota needed for a seat in the previous elections. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo o nna leina la ka ke Victoria De Beer ke leloko la ANC re amogela molaotlhomo ono o re nang le ona dintlha fela di le mmalwa se ke batla go di tlhagisa ke gore tsamaiso eno e ntšha ya ditlhopho tota ga e bereke sentle ka sekai ka 2019 re ne re na le ditlhopho tsa bosetšhaba re ne re na le di-party di le 48 le batho ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi bontlhopheng ba le 200 mme ka nako eo se ne sa etsa gore pampiri ya ditlhopho e ne e telele thata ka jalo re batla gore molaotlhomo ono o ba matleletsong o go buiwang ka one gompieno jaana le yone e ne o dirang sentle e se ka nna o re batlang ditšhelete o re batlang nako ka gonne tota ga e le gore seo se tla direga gore a gore molaotlhomo ono tota ga o bereke sentle mme ebile gape se se re batlang go se tlhagisa fano fa ke gore re kopa gore go boelediwe le go tlhatlhoba batho ba ba itlhagisang gore e nne bontlhopheng gore a mme ba tshwanelega re tlhatlhobe bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi re be re tlhatlhobe le makoko a sepolotiki ga re sa dire yalo re tlile go nna le batho ba ka nna 1,000 e le batho ba bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi mmogo le makoko a dipolotiki yaka ga ke bua ka 2019 re na le 48 parties mara go ne ga tsena mo parlamenteng ba le 14 only seo se ne se bontsha gore thulaganyo eo e ne sa bereke sentle ya ditlhopho ka jalo ge re tshegetsa molaotlhomo mme re kopa gore ka tsweetswe ntlha eno e ele tlhoko le gore palo e beilweng ya ditlhopho e nne 1/3 ya quota re a leboga.
Thank you. The sixth speaker, please come forth.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm Khotso Sesele, member of the ANC. I stand here to support the bill and say thumbs up to the PR system because that is entrenchment of democracy. But at the same time, Chairperson, our view is that this system must not abuse democracy. It should not be used in other terms to rape democracy. Because if an independent has to stand on a PR, and this independent is a person who cannot prove herself to be having a lot of support, we may find that there will be a problem. And normally these kinds of people who come up as independents come up as a result of the amount of money that they have to pay to stand as independents. Honorable De Beer has made an example of 48 and only 14 parties went through. We have gone through the process of independence during local elections. And the reason why there were many independents, or there were people who wanted to be independents, was because of the amount of money that they were supposed to pay to be registered as independents. Now, in this case, it will be very important that the amount must be very substantial to a point that it will not be easy for anybody to attempt to be an independent. Just to cite an example, if, for example, we have to say 5,000 rand for a person to be an independent, and all of us in the house, 150 as we are seated here, have 5,000 rand, it means all of us here qualify to be independents, to be registered. Now imagine the length of the ballot paper when there will be these people together with political parties and so on and so on. The same experience of local elections. It was very difficult even for the voters to see where their parties are. And mostly people take advantage of using the names of parties they know are popular. African so-and-so, African so-and-so, just because there is African National Congress. Everybody will start with African, African, African. The reason why they do that is to be first on the ballot paper, but forgetting that that will cause a lot of problem as people go ahead to vote. Now, my concrete proposal, Chairperson, on this one would be anything, it will not be anything less than 50,000 rand for a person to register as an independent. 2, anyone who registers as an independent must prove record that he is a South African citizen. 3, anyone who registers as an independent must prove that the money he or she has gotten to register is not from any illicit tendencies, not from a drug lord, not from non-South Africans, because today we see that even non-South Africans are able to register political parties, and then for purposes of their own. Now, coming to the support, an independent must show at least 50,000, must have at least 50,000 supporters to show that is an indication that he or she would have a seat come elections. And if it is 50,000, and it happens that an independent should get, say, 100,000, because it is an independent, one body, one person, that person would qualify only for one seat. There are no running mates here, where a person would say, if I am independent and I get 120, my wife will then take the next seat. Or if I am independent, I've won in the province, my wife will go to NCOP. If a person contests in a region or a province and wins a seat, that person must remain in that region, and they must only contest in one region and one region only, not in many more regions. Now, coming to the signatures of the people who shall have supported, the IEC must be able to verify the signatures as well as the ID numbers of those people. Because today, non-South Africans have ID numbers. Non-South Africans are now able to register political parties, are now able to stand as independents. That is the rape of democracy, Chairperson. My last point, the independent should prove beyond reasonable doubt that the deposit page is not accumulated through illicit means. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo nna leina la ka ke Kgotso Sesele ke leloko la ANC ebile ke batla go tlhalosa gore ke amogela le go dumelana le molaotlhomo wa rona ka lebaka la gore system eno ya PR ke yona democracy ya rona. Ke batla go tlhalosa fano fa ka kganya bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi gore ha ba itlhagisa jaaka ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi e tshwanetse gore e nne taba e mo go yona re tshwanetseng go rarabolola mathata mangwe a re nang le one. Ka mantswe a mangwe ra itse gore ka ntlha ya madi a go teng bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi ba tshwanetse go a patela. Madi a ke ona a ko bofelelong a tla tlhomamisang gore diphelelo e nna tse di ntseng yang. Ka sekai ya ka se buisa se fitileng se tlhalositse gore go kile ga nna le 48,000 ya ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi gore ba tlhophiwe go bo go tsena onwe le 14 mo teng ga palamente. Seno sa bontsha gore thulaganyo e re berekisang e na le mathata. Motho wa ipotsa gore goreng re na le bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi ba bantsi thata jaana. Ka jalo e le gore re kgone go laola dilo sentle ka tshwanelo re tla rata gore batho ba ba batlang go itlhagisa gore ba tlhophiwe re ba kope gore gongwe ba patele madi a ka nnang 5,000 ya bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi. Ka ha re dira sekai rotlhe ya ka ha re le mo teng ga holo fano fa mongwe le mongwe a rona a na le 5,000 go raya gore rotlhe re tshwanelegela go registariwa ene e nna bothata ka gore seno se se tla be se dira gore re nne le lenaane la batlhophi le le telele thata ka gonne mongwe le mongwe o na le yona tšhelete eo e go teng ya batliwa. Ka jalo ge selo se re batlang go se tlhatlhobisa fano ne ke batla go akantsha le go proposa gore go twe motho a duele madi a seng ka fa tlase ga 50,000 ba ne ba le bantsi mo nakong e fetileng ka lebaka la gore mongwe le mongwe a kgona go nna le yone tšhelete eo ebile re tlhomamisa gore 50,000 e ga motho a na le yone e ne madi a e leng gore ga a bonwa ka ditsela tsa boferefere jaaka a di-drugs kgotsa a tswang mo bathong ba e seng maaforika borwa ka jalo ga re ka dira jalo re tla kgona go laola dilo ka tsela e tshwanetseng sentle ebile ga ba na le ba fitlheletse palo ya di-vote tsa go teng di a batlega a re ka sekai motho wa teng gatwe ke 50,000 ya di-vote a ba kry-a 100,000 e setseng e oketsegileng e seke ya newa motho o bolatelang e seke ya newa motho go tenya mosadi wa ka o tla tsaya 50,000 kgotsa mokgatlho o rileng o ke o emelang o tla tsaya tse ding tse di oketsegileng ga re ka dira jalo chair re tla kgona go laola dilo sentle re a leboga.
Thank you. The seventh speaker.
Thank you, Chairperson of the session. My name is Tabizolo Msimanga. I'm residing here in Kroonstad. I'm standing here in my individual capacity as the member of the South African Communist Party. I will make some few submissions without wasting your time, Chair. I really support the amendment bill and support the PR system, which must be run in terms of democratic procedures, and the system must remain fair to the public and South African citizens. And also welcoming all individuals to stand as independent to comply with the court order that is currently imposing certain things in our democratic dispensations. Now, when it comes to this point of practicality, to run the elections, I will kindly request the component structure in the country that is responsible for the process of the elections. They must try to apply their obsequential level of running the processes according, because we have observed something. People that have been naturalized as the citizens of South Africa, especially in the SADC region, are starting to manipulate their status when it comes to destabilizing our country in a disguised mentality of saying that the solidarity of being the SADC members and they coming here in South Africa for settlement due to some certain reasons in relation to international issues. Now, when it comes to the administrational issues in the IEC level, the IEC mustn't find itself in an impossible situation when it is creating or drafting the ballot papers. And also, we must be the IEC must also be proportional when it comes to the issues of the budget of the state that will be utilized. Because the moment we start to allow certain things, there is budget constraints and budget implications there. Then I will request the committee to be observant on certain decisions and the criticalness that must never affect the constitutional imperatives and the will of the people. So far, also I will emphasize the point that has been raised by Honorable Executive Mayor of Mwate, Comrade Dipier, by saying that reviewing qualifications of the registrations, it is also the most important factor that needs to be attended. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Ke a leboha, lebitso la ka ke Thabizolo Msimanga, ke tswa mona Moqhaka municipality, mme ke setho sa SACP, empa ke eme mona ka maikutlo a ka, e seng a mokgatlo wa ka. Ke dumellana le bili ena ka hohle, ke tshehetsa le tsela ena ya tshebetso e tsejwang ka hore ke PR system, e leng tsela ya tshebetso e kgemang le democracy, mme ke amohela hape tsela ena hobane e dumellana le qeto ya lekgotla bakeng sa hore dintho di etswe ka tsela e senang leeme. Empa le ha ho le jwalo, re lokela ho sheba tsela ya tshebetso e tla latelwa bakeng sa ho kgema le qeto ena ya lekgotla, mme ke kopa bohle ba nang le tsamaiso tabeng ya dikgetho hore ba etse dintho ka tsela e nepahetseng, haholoholo ba shebe ka leihlo le ntjhotjho baahi bana ba tswang naheng tse ding ba tsejwang ka hore ke di-naturalized citizens ba seng ba fumane mangolo a bodulo a mona Afrika Borwa fela ka lebaka la haholoholo ka hobane e le ditho tsa mabatowa a SADC. O tla fumana hore ba sebedisa maemo a bona ao ho ba le mangolo a Afrika Borwa ka tsela e sa nepahalang ka ho tsamaisa taba tsa bona tse manyofonyofo ba iketsa ekare ke baahi ba mona. IC e lokela ho sheba ka leihlo le ntjhotjho taba tsa ballot paper hore e ske ya ba ka tsela eo batho ba sa tlo e utlwisisang. Hape ho shejwe le taba ya ditjhelete, re a tseba hore dikgetho di batla tjhelete e ngata, mme ha ho so eketsehile bo kgetheng re ka nna ra fumana hore re ba le mathata ao a tjhelete. Komiti le yona ena ya palamente e kotjwa hore e shebe ka leihlo le ntjhotjho diqeto tse entsweng hore di ske tsa thunthetswa maikemisetso a demokrasi le molao wa motheo. Ke dumellana le sebui se itseng ho lokela ho shejwa ka leihlo le ntjhotjho maemo a thuto le dipehelo tse ding mabapi le bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng. Ke a leboha.
Thank you. The eighth speaker.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Honorable Chair, and good morning to all members who are in this House and the public as well. My name is Munyatso Mahlatsi. I'm the Provincial Secretary of COSATU in the Free State. I would like us to also deal with other issues that relate to this bill. For starters, I know you are here on the issue of the bill, but it's also important to look at the feeders into this process of people standing for elections and having more people standing for elections. And some of those are issues that relate to high unemployment rate. Some of those are issues that relate to students that are not in tertiary institutions, and many others that makes some of us to be staying at home, and the only easy thing that we can participate in are politics. So as and when you go back and engage with your colleagues, please raise this matter as well to say, we also need to find ways to deal with the feeders into the system of people ending up standing as candidates. We have laws in our country, and one of the law that is important to me is the Labor Relations Act. And the Labor Relations Act has got in it a built-in mechanism that do not allow proliferation of trade unions, that do not allow that somebody can just decide in the morning to establish a trade union. So I think that is something that is also important, that it should reflect in the bill, so that people are not encouraged to just wake up one morning and go and stand for elections, because if we get to that level, we would have a situation that is not manageable. I'll avoid repeating what has been said earlier in terms of a bigger ballot paper. However, given the situation that we are in, where the Constitutional Court have made a ruling that this is what should happen, maybe at some point we may need as a country to reflect whether our constitution needs to be reviewed in some areas, but that will be a discussion for another day. But at this point in time, the Constitutional Court has made a ruling that the laws should be amended, and as COSATU, We believe that the constitution as it is, until we decide to rediscuss it, still stands and we need to respect it. As a result, we support the bill as it stands. And in supporting the bill, we believe that it will address the current flaws that are currently existing in the governance system, as well as the legislative system. We believe that compliance should also be speeded up, that by next year, around June, this process should have been concluded, so that by 2024, we don't get the elections being delayed because we had not complied. We do not believe that the Constitutional Court was saying there should be a wholesale review of the current electoral laws. It was saying address this specific issue. And as COSATU, we support the need for that specific issue to be addressed. And we believe that there should be very minimal disruptions to the current electoral system. So it should not be kind of like a wholesale kind of review. But there's also inherent dangers in the issue of independent standing, because we are in alliance with the ANC and the SACP. That's not a secret. And we know how ANC deployees are held accountable. But we do not know how independent candidates are held accountable, by who, where, at which platform. And we believe that that issue may need to be raised and be dealt with, because the electoral system should be designed in such a way that it only benefits the people and only the people, not individuals that get the opportunity to be elected. So that's a very important element that we believe should be addressed in this process. But we believe that the current PR system is okay. It should be kept as it is, but just address this issue that has been, the court have said that it should be addressed. If I have a whole submission written here, I'll try to find an email address to send it to you, so that I don't waste time talking through all these 15 slides that I'm having here. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. You can bring forth, you can liaise with the team. One of the team, the support staff, will come to you to take that submission. Thank you.
Ke a le dumedisa, lebitso la ka ke Monyatso Mahlatsi, ke tswa Bloemfontein, ke mongodi wa province wa COSATU, ke dumellana le bill ena, empa ke nahana hore ho na le dintho tse ding tse ka thoko tse re lokelang ho shebana le tsona, tse nyalellanang le ntlha ena o buang ka yona, eo shebane le yona billing ena. Mme ya ntho ya bohlokwa ke hore ho tlo ba le palo e eketsehileng ya bonkgetheng, mme haholoholo sena se tlo bakwa ke baithuti bao motho a qetileng dithuto tsa hae empa a sena mosebetsi, batho ba sa sebetseng le batho ba dutseng hae ba tlo nkang sena e le monyetla hore motho a fumane mosebetsi. Ka ho komiti ena e lokela ho sheba ntho eo. Re na le melao mona naheng ya rona, mme molao o ko ratang haholoholo kapa o maikutlong a ka ke molao wa basebetsi o tsejwang ke Labour Relations Act. Mme ho ya ka molao ona wa dikamano tsa basebetsi, ha ho motho ya dumeletsweng hore a tsohe fela hoseng a ba sa ntsa re le nna ke tla iketsetsa ke tla iqalla mokgatlo wa kwa basebetsi. Ke nahana hore le mona dikgethong ho lokela ho ba jwalo molaong wa dikgetho, hore motho a ska tsoha fela hosane, ho qojwe taba hore motho a ska tsoha fela hosane a ba sa re le nna ke tla ba nkgetheng. Ka tsela e jwalo re tla qoba dipampiri tsa baloto tse telele. Re dumellana le hore le ha kwana re dumellana le taba ena ya hore qeto ya kgotla re lokela ho e ananela. Mohlomong re lokela ha nako e ntse ya re ke re shebe molao wa motheo, re dumellana le molao wa motheo, empa mohlomong re lokela ho sheba hore o tlo re thuse ho re ske ra etsa diphoso tsa dintho tseo ke seng ke buile ka tsona hona mona tse ke buileng ka tsona. Mme re ka thuswa haholoholo ke ha re ka sheba hore re ngole molao wa motheo, re lokise mona le mane mabapi le taba tsa dikgetho. Taba ena bile re kopane le yona ka jone lena e lokela ho potlakiswa ka hohle ka moo ka kgonang ka teng, mohlomong nakong yona ena lemong se tlang e be se phethetswe hore tle re ka 2024 ha uwa dikgethong ho ska nna thu dikgetho di emiswa hanyane ho santsane ho na le dintho tse lokisang mabapi le molao wa dikgetho. Hobane lekgotla la dikgetho, lekgotla ha le ne le etsa qeto ha le a re ho fetolwe molao wa dikgetho kaofela, le itse ho shejwe mona le mane, ka ho ha re shebeng mona le mane fela hore re tle re ske ra senya nako, re tle re be nakong bakeng sa dikgetho ka 2024. Ho na le ntho ena kotsi eo ke e bonang, rona re le SACP, rona re le COSATU, re kgema le SACP le ANC, mme ha ho na le diphoso kapa ho na le bobodi kapa le eng, ho na le moo IEC e lebeletseng hore ditho tse nang le dintho tse sa lokang kapa tse itshwereng tsa boitshwaro bo sa lokang di na le moo di iswang teng, di lo tlalehwa teng mekgatlong ya bona. Jwale batho ba ikemetseng, bo nkgetheng ba ikemetseng ba tlo tlaleha ho mang kae hobane ba ikemetse. Ka hoo ke dumellana le tsela ena ya tshebetso ya PR, empa ke hore e tle kgone ho lokisa dintho tse laetseng ke lekgotla ho di lokise, empa re lokela ho sheba le mathatanyana ao kapa dintho tseo tse hwayang tseo ke seng ke buile ka tsona. Ke na le ntho tse ngata ne ke batla ho di bua, ke na le di-slides tse ngata, empa di-slides tseo ke tla di romela hore le tle le tsebe hore tsa sona ke dife ka taba hore ke batla ho bolokana.
Thank you. Do we have other speakers for the second round as we have concluded with the first round? Can I kindly note hands for those speakers that will want to come? And this will be the second last round. So the hands that I'm going to note would be the last rounds. You can come through. When I note hands, kindly make your way to the chairs in the middle based on the number or order that I would have given you. You are the first speaker, you are the second speaker, sir, you are the third speaker, you are the fourth speaker, black cap, Philip, you are the fourth speaker. You are the fifth speaker with a black jacket, you are the sixth speaker with a green cap, you are the second speaker, yes, you are the eighth speaker there with a red sweater, you are the ninth speaker, you are the 10th speaker. So this is the last 10 hands that will be speaking in this round. Kindly note, when you come to the podium to speak, kindly be indicative of who you are, where you are coming from, which organization you are representing. If you are not representing any organization, FBO, CBO, or any you indicate, and therefore furnish us with whether you accept the amendment bill or you reject, therefore put your submission forward. And please, can we kindly not be intimidative to those who will be speaking in the podium as and when they speak. Let's practice tolerance. Thank you. The first speaker, you can come forth.
Yes, good morning, Chairperson. Mine is Mthandi Kintlab. I'm the member of the African National Congress here in Mukaga and responsible for the branch of the ANC called ZR Mahabani branch. In government structures is Ward 14. Firstly, let me express my appreciation for the manner in which, after the court has passed that judgment, both government and legislature, without any waste of time, embarked on this particular process. I want to appreciate that particular intervention that we are making. Secondly, I've got more than 5 issues that I want to raise, but I want to limit to 2, most of which have been covered by other speakers that came forward. Firstly, I want just to re-emphasize this point, that this particular portfolio committee must not really think twice when processing this bill to its finality in terms of very, very stringent measures in regulating qualifications of any independent elections contester. That this particular process must show that the parliament is at work, both in terms of defending the voters, the electorate, because once the ballot paper, for example, on the bill, once going through, is developed and is confusing the voters, potentially we are abusing the voters. Therefore, the bill or any act must not try to enter that particular terrain. It will confuse our electorates. Therefore, the intention is to make the measures very, very stringent, applying Section 36 of the Constitution by imposing those limitations and qualifications in that particular bill. Two, it is very important that when going through this particular process of the amendment of Electoral Act, it may not be the last journey today. Therefore, going to the 2024 general elections, my view would be it must begin to ring immediately if indeed further amendments may be required to deal with whatever consequences that may arise as a result of the application of the Amendment Act. I therefore, with this particular comment, support this particular bill as it is, but ensure that you limit strongly whatever thing that may cause damage to the voters. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Dumelang, lebitso la ka ke Mthandeki Nhlapo, ke tswa ho mokgatlo wa ANC mona Mkhaka. Ke tshehetsa bili ena e re buang ka yona kajeno, mme ke batla ho le leboha jwalo ka mmuso le ntlo ya ketsamolao hore ebe le qadile tshebetso enana haufinyana. Ntlha ya ka ya pele ke hore tshebetsong ya lona jwalo ka komiti ha le isa bili ena qetellong ya yona, le be le melao e tiileng mabapi le maemo kapa mangolo a thuto a bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng. Lona jwalo ka parlamente le tlameha ho sebeletsa ho tshireletsa bakgethi. Dipampiri tsa dikgetho ha di a tlameha hore ha di ntse di etswa di qetelle di ferekanya bakgethi, hobane hona e ba tlhekefetso ya bakgethi. Ntlha ya bobedi ke hore leetong lena la tokiso ya bili enana ho ka nna hwa hlaha ditokiso tse ding ha nako e ntse e tsamaya, mme re kopa hore le tsepame hodima ntshetsopele ya bili enana le shebane haholo le tshireletso ya bakgethi. Ke a leboha.
Thank you. The next speaker, can you kindly come forth? Before you speak, we have made a request that can cell phones kindly be on silent. We all have those important calls that we should make or receive. Therefore, can we kindly, in respecting the meeting, put our phones on silent?
No, thanks, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Let me take this opportunity to appreciate the opportunity that has been given to us to come and give our views on this important matter, Chair. I would very much quick to say that much of the things that one might have thought of has been already deliberated on by many of the former speakers who has already took to the podium. But I will wish also to say in support of the bill in its current form, we must also be careful taking some notes from what Comrade Mahlatsi has spoken of, about maybe at some stage we'll need to visit again the contents of our constitution. Because to some extent, some of us feel that the constitution is a little bit too much open for manipulation. Because some of the things that people are taking the constitution to court and from time to time be winning by being favored by the setup in the constitution is actually tempering on the importance of the individuals or the parties on the ground outside the constitution. Let me make an example on what I'm trying to say. The issue of the PR, which we say we support, is calculation to some extent, is favoring those who have got less support on the ground than those who have got more support. Because in most of the municipalities, you'll find that some of the parties who had little support will be finding themselves having more seats than even the opposition that has been having at least sizable support during the polls. So that in itself, I think it will need us to go back to it. And I think that is also the reason which necessitated or make people to see reason in taking this bill to court, and then for that reason also, they managed to emerge victorious. Let me also talk on the matter of qualification, Chair. On this one, I think Comrade Victoria said a mouthful, that it is in no way that we can find people waking up or behaving willy-nilly in trying to register for their contestation in the polls when there are no guidelines or determining grounds, which I believe must be very tight in this regard for those to consider them as people or parties, but particularly now we are talking in terms of people that they can be registered to contest the elections. Because if you look at the percentages in terms of how best our constitution has been lenient and accommodating of all because of its democratic make-up, you'll also find that people who have got less than or at most 0.25%, they've got the representation in parliament. They won seats, and then when you go further and check what is the qualification for a seat, it is that you must have 40 to 60 votes for you to qualify to get one seat. But if we needed to say we had to be stringent, even though comrades were saying 50,000, I believe, as we are suggesting also, that the representation, the consideration of qualification for individuals must also be the same that is being considered when we are dealing with parties. But we'll suggest, even if we can go to say, for a person or a party to have a seat in parliament, let it go to 70 or 100 votes, so that at least we know we can minimize the contestation, because even if we are discussing on issues of coalition, you can't be discussing with a number of dozens of parties, because each and every party or individual will come to present his view and wish for that view to be considered as the best important than all other views. In closing, leadership, we are saying we accept the bill, but those considerations that must be taken into account truly must be taken into account. I thank you, Leader.
Thank you.
Dumelang, ke leboha monyetla o le re fileng ona wa hore re tlo ema mona re hlahise maikutlo a rona. Bongata ba dintho tsene ke batla ho di bua di se di bue, empa ke batla hore re tlameha hore re shebisise taba ena haholo, mme re nahane ka ho lekola molaotheo hape, hobane ka dinako tse ding re ka fumana hore molaotheo o buleile haholo, mme ba bang ba ka nka monyetla ka taba eo. mohlala ke hore taba ena ya PR system eo re tshehetsang e shebala e na le leeme bakeng sa batho ba nang le tshehetso e nyane ho feta ba nang le tshehetso e ngata. Hobane o tla fumana hore ho dimasepala ba nang le tshehetso e nyane ba na le ditulo tse ngata ho feta ba nang le tshehetso e kgolo. Ka hoo bili tlameha ho nka senana e se nahane hobane e ka ba mabaka a tjena a etsang hore bili qetelle e iswa lekgotleng. Ke batla bua hape ka taba ya mangolo a di-qualification. Re tlameha ho sheba taba ena hantle haholo hobane o ka fumana hore batho ba nang le tshehetso e nyane jwalo ka 0.25 ba na le boemedi parlamenteng, empa nna nkare bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng ba tlameha ho tshwarwa hantle jwalo ka mekga ya dipolotiki, mme ba be le tshehetso e ka bang ya di-vote tse 70 ho isa tse 100 hore ba fumane setulo. Ke batla ho qetella ka hore bili ena re a e tshehetsa, fela ke kopa ka matla hore le hle le shebisise mabaka ao re faneng ka ona mona kajeno. Ke a leboha.
Thank you. Can we have a speaker?
Dumelang, lebitso la ka ke Thulani Class. Ntlha e nngwe fela e tobane le Schedule 1A. Jwale ha o bala Schedule 1A mono, se re half of the seats mane National Assembly di tla be di filluwa ke the independent candidates, and then di tla bitswa the regional seats ha o kopanywa le list of candidates of political parties contesting the 9 regions, and they shall be referred to as regional seats. And B, yateng ere, half the seats are filled by candidates from list of candidates of political parties, and these shall be referred to as compensatory seats. Jwale ke na le bothata mo eleng hore independent candidates already sentse di belletswe ka thoko ditulo tse ka bang tse 100, hobane ha o sheba ditulong tse 400 ha o re half ya teng ke 200 e tla ba di regional seats, half ya teng 100 e tla e ba the independent candidate ka mantswe a mang o ba fa undue advantage. Another thing, tabena di party political system ena le historical background. Jwale nna ke tswa mona mo eleng hore e tlo fragmenta lentswe la batho ba batsho. Mo eleng hore o tla fumana hore political party e winning ha e sa kgona ho nka diqeto jwale ka ho nka qeto ya lefatshe hore na lefatshe le kgutlela bathong ba batsho jwang. Jwale ke ne ke re the independent candidates ha di se ke tsa fuwa di 100 seats tseo di mpe di contest jwale ka di political parties ka mantswe a mang ho scrapuwe 45 mono ho Schedule 1A. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nna leina la ka ke Thulane Class, ke a leboga. Ke ne ke rata go tlhagisa ntlha e ke nang le yona ya Schedule 1A. Schedule 1A e bua fana fa ka gore halofo ya di-seat tsa National Assembly e tshwanetse gore e nne tsa bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi mo go raya gore tse dingwe tse di salang ke tsa regional seats. And then B ya teng e be e re half e nngwe e setseng yona e tla nna ya di bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi ba ba tswa.
Askies.
Sorry.
I think the speaker was speaking in English. So therefore we require the other version of it.
So I must be speaking in Setswana, so sorry.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. In English, yeah, it got me very confused because I heard some two languages. Somewhere I noted you are speaking in Setswana. All right, so this Mr. Thulane Class was mentioning that he is wanting to make a point from the Schedule 1A, which refers to half of the seats that are actually reserved for the National Party. And then they say then for the independent candidates, the remaining seats will be for the regional seats. And then the B part, that is, then it says the half would be for the independent candidates, and the remaining ones, they say, will be for the compensatory seats. So now, to make it an example, when we're speaking about 400 of them, it means that half of this will be obviously 200, and then as we go along with the calculation, we will then have 100 reserved for the regional, and then regional seats, and then half will actually be not for the individual independent running candidates, which gives them an undue advantage in this particular program. So basically then, what we want to say here is that the political parties who will win then will simply be an indicative of the fact that the 100 seats will then not belong to them. So, and I'm just raising these 2 points in a summary form to say that this is one of the aspects which is a cause for concern, which would like us that it be looked into. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on the podium.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair of the session. My name is Philip Khanyago. I am representing the South African Communist Party in the province of the Free State. This organization asked me to remind everyone that during this month we are celebrating the International Working Women's Day, and we want to urge everyone to follow the theme of this year, which is about breaking the bias that feeds into the oppression of women internationally. Let's play a role. Our submission in relation to the matter before us is that firstly we support the amendment bill to the extent that the proposed amendments will assist us in making sure that we ultimately don't compromise the ability to establish stable governments that are based on the democratic expression of the will of the people. So that's the basis upon which we are supporting the bill. Our view, our submission is that the current multi-party system of democratic government is practical, and that it also ensures commendable proportional representation of the demographics of our country in parliament and the legislatures as it stands. We support the continuation of the proportional representation system in the country, and in order to ensure that we bring our legal regime in line and in sync with the letter and spirit of the Constitution, the SACP also supports, in the province also support the amendment to allow participation of independent candidates in the electoral processes as directed by the Constitutional Court. In terms of our additional submissions, Chair, we are saying that welcoming this amendment of participation by independent candidates, it should not lead to diluting and compromising the integrity of our electoral processes, both administratively and substantively. We do know that there are those that always try underhand tactics. That's why we're recommending that the sources of monies that would be utilized even by independents to register for elections, they have to be traceable to avoid instances and situations where the money, those who are rich, those who might go and even infiltrate other organizations to identify individuals, fund them to weaken their electoral capacity and support. So traceability of resources of those who stand independently is something that the committee needs to take seriously. And administratively, the last local government elections, Chair, had about 426,000 spoiled papers. That is only 4 parties in our national parliament managed to secure votes above that number. So we're saying administratively we must be careful not to complicate the electoral process to make it as hard as it already is, because that would mean that the number of spoiled papers will increase even more, which will also affect the expression of the will of the people. That's why we require that one. In terms of the criteria, Chair, we are saying the criteria for participation, even by independent candidates, should be anchored primarily on proven support on the ground by citizens, and should also be based on a quota. and it must apply, the same criteria must apply for both entities and independent individuals. On the allocation of seats, we're saying the criteria should ensure that participation by minorities and independent candidates must not be anti-majoritarian in nature, but must embrace the constitutionally supported democratic principle of majority rule that reflects the will of the people. And lastly, Chair, we are saying that if there are those that may not necessarily make it into legislatures and government, there are extra parliamentary processes that must be supported and anchored to ensure that they continue to participate in those processes and activities of government. Lastly, I must leave with you with a problem that you should respond to. In instances where an independent candidate makes it to the legislature or to parliament, we all know that death is inevitable. And such a person passes away. What becomes the mechanism of making sure that there is replacement in that sense? Because you don't have traceability of who actually voted for this specific independent individual. How do you handle that in a manner that avoids turning the country to be perpetually in electoral or in elections mode? That's something that we require that the committee consider seriously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo, ke nna Phil Phanya. Sorry, what is it?
Kganyago.
Phanyago. Ke a Phil Khanyago, ke a leboga. Sorry about that. Ne ke sa utlwa leina sentle ne. And then nna ke rona re baemedi ba re amogela bile eno e fapela ga rona. So ke tswa gona mo Free State mono mo. And then ke ne ke batla go tlhalosa fano fa gore mo dintlheng tsa rona re amogela bile ya molaotlhomo ono o e leng gore o tshitswintse gona anong jaana, ka gonne re a itse gore o tlile go thusa fela thata ka kgono ya go tsweledisetsa thulaganyo ya rona ya democracy e re nang le yone mo nageng ya rona. Re a itse gore e tla nna mosola ha re tla mo kganya ya batho ba e leng bontlhopheng mo parlamenteng mmogo le mo karolong ya kgotlatheo peomolao. Ebile gape re dumelana thata le go neba ga batho dipalo tsa di-vote ka go lekalekana e leng thulaganyo e re tsang gore le yone e bereka sentle. Ebile gape re tsaya gore tsamaiso ya semolao e tlabeng e dirisiwa fano fa rona SACP e re dumelanang le yone ke gore re batla go dumela fela thata gore batho ba bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi ba letlwe gore ba nne le tšhono eo ya gore ba tsenelele ditlhopho tseo. Ditlhabololo tse di dirilweng mo molaotheong ono o re dumela gore ga di senye sepe re a di amogela. Thulaganyo ya ditlhopho e leng teng le one re dumelana le one ga rena mathata gotlhelele ka yone, mme fela re eletsa gore go seke ga nna le ditiro tsa boferefere tsa go tsamaisa thulaganyo eno ya ditlhopho, mme batho ba e leng gore ba itlhagisa jaaka ba ba tlhophiwang re batla gore go nne le thulaganyo ya go ba tsaya ka motlhala go bona gore dilo tsotlhe tse ba di dirang di dirilwe sentle kwa ntle ga go tlola molao ope. Mo nakong e fetileng thulaganyo e ne sa tsamaye sentle ka gonne go nnile le 246,000 ya dipampiri tsa ditlhopho tse di neng tsa senngwa. Ga re batla gore seno se ipoeletse gape, re batla gore dilo di dirwe ka thulaganyo go ya ka molao ntle le go senya sepe. Le ditulo tse batho ba di abelwang re kopa gore le tsone e nne tse di tla dirwang jalo ntle le ditsela dipe fela tsa boferefere ka tsela epe. And then ke feleletse fano ka gore thulaganyo yotlhe ya semolao mo parlamenteng mmogo le mo kgotlatheo molao e ne e latelelwang. Ntlha ya bofelo fa motho a tlhokafala gongwe a nne a le mo parlamenteng kgotsa mo kgotlatheopeng molao go tlile go dirwa jang? A go ka nna le tsela epe ya gore go nne le go baakanya bothata bo ntle le go romela naga gape mo thulaganyo ya ditlhopho? Ke a leboga.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thanks. Let me take this opportunity to applaud the committee for choosing the month March. This public hearings, Chair, takes place on the month of March, 5 days before March 21, where our people in Sharpeville and Langa were maimed by apartheid regime fighting for a just and democratic, non-sexist South Africa. Independents are, my name is Hansen Ketu, I'm from the ANC. Thanks. Independents are by virtue individuals who cannot be subjected to a collective party leadership, including party democracy, instead accountable to themselves and their family, and not be guided by any policy or manifesto. Chair, currently as a country, we are faced by what is called voter apathy, which is exacerbated by a plethora of issues. One being long waiting hours as a result of long ballot papers. And secondly, the other reason being high level of illiteracy. If the majority of South Africans were literate enough, they will be able to take a considerable time perusing the ballot paper. They have to enlist the assistance of an additional personnel to assist them to go through a ballot paper, which then would result in them taking a long time as it was expected. Sometimes our people get discouraged by long waiting times. And most of our people are from poor backgrounds. We all know that the IEC is unable to provide catering to the electorates. And then most of our electorates have got a variety of ailments, which will require them not to stay long without having anything to take into their stomachs. And as such, we'd find people collapsing and some dying in queues waiting to cast their vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jaleboha, lebitso la ka ke Hansen Ketu, ke tswa mane Strekeng sa Fezile Dabi, mme ke setho sa ANC, ke dumellana le bili ena ka hohle hohle, mme ke thuhuletsa lekgotla lena ho tla mona ho tlo shebana le taba ena ka kgwedi ya March. Matsatsi a mahlano fela pele ho di 21 tsa March, letsatsi la bohlokwa haholo le ketekang kapa lona le shebaneng le taba tse la tsa etsahala motseng wa Sharpeville nakong e fetileng moo batho ba rona ba ileng ba bolawa ka sehloko ba lwanela democracy. Ke tla bua fela ka ntlha e le nngwe ya enhwayahwayang ya bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng. Bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng ha ba tshwane le batho ba ileng ditho tsa mekga ya dipolotiki hobane ba itaela mme ha hona di-manifesto tse ba laela mme re lokela ho hlokomela taba eo hobane sena se ka baka hore ho be le mathata ka ha hona moo ba tla ikarabela teng ba etsa diphoso. Ke tla bua hape ka taba ya ho vouta le se ka bakwang ke di-ballot paper tse telele. Re a tseba matsatsing ana ho na le ho tswafa batho ba se ba tswafa ho vouta haholoholo ntho e tsejwang ka hore ke voter apathy. Mme sena se bakwa ke mela e melelele eo batho ba emeng ho yona ha ba tlo vouta. O fumane hore ka nako nngwe batho ha ba phela hantle ba ema nako e telele. Ra tseba hore IEC ha e fane ka dijo, ke ka hoo ka nako nngwe re fumanang batho ba bang ba idibana kapa ba shwella meleng ya ho vouta. Ho na le batho ba bangata ba voutang, ba lokelang ho vouta, ba sa tsebeng ho bala, mme ka sena se etsa hore ho hlokehe hore ho be le basebetsi ba bang ba bangata ba tlo ba thusang hore ba kgone ho kgetha ka tsela e nepahetseng. Hape ho na le taba ya hore ho tlo ba le di-ballot paper tse telele tse batlang hore motho a qete nako e telele a ntse a di sheba a leka ho bona hore o lokela ho kgetha mang. Mme ntlha tseo tse pedi di tla baka hore batho ba senye nako e telele ba ntse ba le meleng ya ho vouta e leng ntho e tla etsang hore ba tswafe ho vouta. Ke a leboha.
Thank you. The next speaker.
Good day, good afternoon. My name is Samuel Lichesa and I come from the ANC in Fezile Dabi, and we are supporting the amendment of the electoral bill. We as the ANC are of the view that the PR system ensures that parties will appeal to their core supporters rather than a small so-called swing voters in marginal seats, and we are also arguing that the PR delivers fairer treatment of minority parties and independent candidates, and under the PR, fewer votes are wasted as more people's preferences are taken into account. We are also of the view that the PR encourages voter turnout and reduces apathy. We also believe that PR rarely produces an absolute majority for one party. However, it could be argued that PR also ensures greater continuity of government and requires greater consensus in policy making. In instances where, for example, an independent candidate requires 50,000 votes to get a seat in the National Assembly, and then the candidate gets a total of 70,000 votes. The IEC has to find a way to find use for the remaining 20,000 votes, which we believe the IEC itself must be regulated and be treated in such a fair and just manner. We as the ANC also believe the FPTS system cannot be relied upon to provide a legislature reflecting the various shades of opinion expressed at the election, and it does not necessarily place in power a government supported by the minority of the electorate. Also, the system is a winner-takes-it-all system, and that can deny representation in legislature and, to a certain extent, levels of minority opinion, and can provide large differences in the number of representatives elected, with only a small difference in the number of votes obtained through the operation of the winning bonus. Lastly, it is necessary, absolutely necessary to have all levels of minority of opinions represented in a limited number of legislatures. Failure to have minority opinion represented denies the democratic rights of the minorities. And just on a final point that my fellow comrades have also missed, we as the African National Congress are also proposing that in the event that an elected public official passes away, the options of a by-election happening in that ward or in that community must also be scrapped. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ke a leboha, lebitso la ka ke Samuel Lichesa, ke tswa mane seterekeng sa Fezile Dabi, mme ke dumellana le bili ena. Rona re le ANC re dumellana le taba hore tsela ya tshebetso ya bokgethi ya PR e etsa hore ho be le tshehetso e matlafetseng setjhabeng mabapi le puso, hore ho fihlelwe le ba senang boemedi ba ka nako e fetileng ba ne ba sa kgone ho ba le boemedi mmusong, ba fumana hore ba na le boemedi haholoholo mekgatlo e menyane le batho ba ikemetseng. Mme ka tsela e jwalo hobane PR, tshebetso ena ya PR e batla hore ha ho dumela kapa ho hanana le taba ho be le palo e eketsehileng, ke seo a se bitsang hore ke greater consensus. Taba ena ya hore mohlomong ha re etsa mohlala ho be le batho ba 50,000 tseo motho hore ha e le nkgetheng ya ikemetseng a fumana setulo parlamenteng, mme e le hore motho eo na fumane 70,000 ho tlo ba le di-vote tse 20,000 e seng 20,000 tseo motho ena a sa tlo di sebedisang. Re nahana hore IEC e be yona e lokelang ho etsa qeto mabapi le di-vote tseo tse lahlwang. Tsela ena e sebediswang hona jwale tjena ha e sebetse hantle hobane motho eo e leng yena ya hlotseng ke yena a etsang diqeto ka hohle, mme ha utlwahale maikutlo a mekgatlo e menyane mmoho le batho ba ikemetseng. Ho bohlokwa hore batho mekgatlo e menyane le batho ba ikemetseng le bona ba tle ba utlwahale pusong hore ho ske ha thunthetswa democracy. ha re tla ntlheng yane ya ho qetela, ntlheng ya ho qetela, ha re tla bathong bane ha mohlomong ho etsahala hore motho ya kgethuweng e leng kgetheng ya ikemetseng ha sa le mmusong a ba hlokahala. Re kopa hore ho ska ba le dikgetho, taba eo yona ho hang e ska ba teng ho se be le dikgetho. Ke a leboha.
Thank you. The next speaker.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. My name is Kinalema Mpukunzi. I'm from the Free State, from the region called Butswa. I'm the member of the African National Congress. Chair, I am going to present what we believe as the ANC. We accept the bill, Chair. We are also saying that, Chair, the independent must be treated equally as the political parties. They must be treated the same as political parties. The Constitutional Court obliges Parliament to make changes to the Act to allow independent to contest against parties in national and provincial election. It does not force us to change the legislation. It only says that we need to be accommodative to the independent. But Chair, all of us, we are aware that we are just from the local government election last year on the 2021. It was a nightmare in terms comes to the voter apathy. Maybe I need to start with the IEC. The IEC was not that ready to run those elections. We are not even sure when the COVID is going to go away, Chair. We are all aware that it has been extended again to the next month. Now, we are faced with many challenges in South Africa, but what we are saying, Chair, in the country is that we had a system of the PR that has been very effective, that has made us to have the free and fair elections. No one has ever challenged us that the PR was unfair. Now we are saying we are sticking to the system of the PR system quota. If we are going to change and make sure that the system is not free and fair, we will have a problem of people who will be taking the government to court, even the IEC, and the elections logisticals will be the nightmare, Chair. At the moment, all the parties are paying 200,000 a deposit for national and 45,000 for provinces, for the legislatures. What we are pleading to the committee is that the independent must be treated the same. And after all these parties have won one seat, they have their deposit if they won one seat. Now, we are saying independent is one person. We are saying it must be the same with independent. If we are agreeing to say the independent must be included as we are supporting the bill, they must pay the same amount of money, Chair. And the money must be looked into because we don't know where the money is going to come from. We have just as Parliament of South Africa, the Parliament has approved the bill that speaks to the disclosure by political parties in terms of their funding. So the same law must be applicable to the independent. They must disclose where they get their funding from, so that the process is free and fair to everybody, Chairperson. We are also saying that the independent are unable to account to anyone. As they get in there, they'll be accountable to themselves. They don't have laws, they don't have policies that will be guiding them. And as we have said that we are freshly from the local government, it's a nightmare in local government to run the municipalities because of the coalitions. It will be a lot of parties that are coming. We are not only speaking to independent, but we are also to say to those parties that are not currently in legislatures and national at the current moment, they must also be treated the same. Chair, we are saying it is going to be very difficult to run the country with many coalitions and many small parties. We are also saying to you, Chair, and the committee that we need to look into systems that will help us, because the constitution of the country is the supremacy law that governs the country. And we have not come to the point where we have changed the constitution to accommodate, to change the PR system. Even though the PR system in local government is still a problem. So we are supporting the bill, Chair, but we are saying we remain with the PR system. The quota must be the same for both independent and the parties, Chair. We thank you.
Thank you.
Dumelang, lebitso la ka ke Kinalema Mpukunzi, ke tswa mokgatlong wa ANC. Ke ema mona ke re tshehetsa bili, mme ke re bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng ba tlameha ho tshwara hantle jwalo ka ha mekga ya dipolotiki e tshwarwe. Lekgotla la molaotheo le dumella diphetoho ho molao, empa ha le so tlamelle hore ho be le diphetoho ho ketso ya molao. Le a tseba hore selemong se fetileng re tswa ho dikgetho tsa lehae, mme re bone bakgethi ba bangata ba sena taba le dikgetho, ba na le voter apathy. Re bone hape le hore IEC ne sa ikemisetsa. Ha re tsebe le hore na COVID e tla fela neng, jwalo ka ha re bone e se e ekeleditswe nako ho fihlela kgweding e tlang. Hape ke re system ya PR e sebetsa hantle, mme e netefatsa dikgetho tse lokolohileng tse senang leeme. Ka hoo re re mmuso o dula o ntso sebedisa system ya PR. Tabeng ya tjhelete ke re bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng ba tlameha ho lefa tjhelete e lekaneng le mekga ya dipolotiki. Fela ha re tsebe hore na bonkgetheng bana ba ikemetseng ba tla e fumana kae tjhelete eo. Ka hoo ho tlameha ho ba le melao ya tshenolo hore re tsebe hore na tjhelete ena ya bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng e tswa kae. Bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng ha ba ikarabelle ho mang kapa mang, ha bana melao, ha bana di-policy. Ka hoo ho tlameha hore ho be le melao e tiileng ha o tla ho shebane le taba ya bona. Ho tlo ba boima ho tsamaisa mmuso, jwalo ka ha se re bone mmusong wa lehae hore ho thata ho tsamaisa ditaba ka lebaka la mekga e mengata le bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng. Le ha o le jwalo re tshehetsa bile mme mmuso o tswele pele ka system ya PR. Ke a leboha.
Thank you. Next speaker.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Namely, I am Khotom Fukeng. I'm a citizen of Mokaka in Ward 10 specifically. I'm from the ANC Youth League of Peter Mokaba. I'm a member of the ANC of Winnie Mandela and Soli Mahlangu. But however, Chair, I'm here to represent my own personal submissions. I accept to a certain proportion the amendment of the bill in regards to suggested framework of a PR system, but I'm very much reserved on the amendment for participation of independent candidates. Now, most of the previous speakers, Chair, have taken my points and have delivered them eloquently, so I'll just be very quick. The PR system in its current form seeks to ensure that every corner of South Africa, irrespective of race, gender, or creed, whether a minority or majority, has a proportional representation in either a municipal council, a provincial legislature, or parliament. That is why, Chair, for an example, we're able to have small parties that represent different religious views in parliament. The party-based system, due to the makeup of the party structures, my party in particular, the ANC, has what we call branches, which are ward-based and present in almost, if not all wards in South Africa, ensuring that views of ordinary citizens from all walks of life are equally represented in one organization, as political parties pick MPs from all provinces to ensure all provinces are represented, ensuring equality in parliament. Now, Chair, the push of independent candidates on a national scale in a country which has had 400 years of certain groups being sidelined through colonialism and further entrenched by apartheid up until 1994, it will be disingenuous for us to allow independent candidates to have direct access to be voted into parliament in a country deemed as the most unequal in the world, because they will not be representing the broader society. Also, the idea that independent candidates are not prone to being controlled by outside proxies or being captured, as they say in political corners, is not viable, because it is much easier to capture an individual than a political party. Independent candidacy will likely lead to billionaires or multinational companies putting limitless amounts of money into their preferred candidates for campaigning in order to influence parliamentary bills to push their own capitalistic agendas, which will infringe on the sovereignty of this country. And that is my submission, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dumelang, ke a leboha modulasetulo. Lebitso la ka ke Kgotso Mofokeng, mme ke setho sa ANC Youth League. Ke eme mona ho tla hlahisa maikutlo a ka. Ke rata hore ke tshehetsa bili ena ntlheng eo e buang ka system ya PR. Di PR system e tshehetsa boemedi ba mekga e menyenyana mmusong, e leng ka hoo ke tshehetsang. ANC e na le makala hohle diwateng tsa yona, mme sena se etsa bonnete ba hore batho bohle ba ba le boemedi ditabeng tsa tsamaiso ya mmuso le parlamenteng. Ha o tluwa tabeng ya bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng, bona ha ke bone ba lokela ho ba le phihlello e otlolileng ho parlament, hobane ha ba no emela maikutlo a bohle ka hara naha. Ke bona sena e le tshebetso e kekeng ya tswela pele. Ke bona tumello ya bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng e tlo lebisa ho batho ba nang le ditjhelete, dibilione, hore ba tsetele tjhelete ho batho ba ikemetseng ka bomong hore e be bonkgetheng ba ikemetseng. Mme sena se tlo tla se sitisa tsamaiso ya democracy ka hara naha ya rona. Ke a leboha.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Tauma Basa, a member of the African National Congress. Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the country on political rights says everyone has a right to stand for political office and if elected to hold an office. The Freedom Charter, which was adopted in 1955, in its preamble says, there is no government can justly claim the authority unless it's based on the will of the people. Chair, we accept the bill and understand that it seeks to ensure that independent candidates contest the elections both in the provincial and national level. And we agree that our democracy is maturing. But Chair, the bill should ensure that independent candidates are being scrutinized by the community, and the communities have opportunity to object the contestation or their standing into the office. The second issue, Chair, like any other political parties, independent candidates should be bound by the electoral code of conduct. The independent candidates need to meet the same electoral vote threshold as political parties. Example, they must receive the same required percentage for their votes. Chair, it is important that the independent candidates, we look into where they get their money, because we don't want international companies and NGOs to come and control our country. But most importantly and lastly, we like to propose that the committee must also play oversight over the IEC. In the last elections, we saw that the IEC could not match those elections. And if we put independent candidates, it's going to be very difficult to work for the IEC. So as we move to elections, it is important that you play oversight role and make sure that IEC is ready to run those elections. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Leina la me ke Thabo Mabasa, nna ke leloko la ANC, and then ke a leboga modulasetulo. Go na le chapter ya molaotheo wa rona wa naga o bua gore mongwe le mongwe o na le tshwanelo ya go itlhagisa go nna ntlhopheng gore a ke a kgonne go nna modiri wa mo officing e ntseng jalo. And then Freedom Charter lone e bua yalo gore ga gona motho ope o ka nnang le thata le taolo fa a sa letlelelwa le go inewa ke maloko a setšhaba. Ka jalo ha re bua ka bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi ba ba tlhophiwang gore ba tsene mo kokoanong bo setšhaba mmogo le mo teng ga kgotlatshekelo molao, re batla go tlhomamisa gore molaotlhomo ono o o tlhomamisitse sentle gore batho bano ba tlhatlhobisisitswe gore tota ba tshwanelega gore ba ka kgona go tsena mo teng ebile maloko a setšhaba a na le tshwanelo ya go bagana fa ba batla go bagana ntlha ya bobedi ke gore bo ntlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi botlhe ba e leng gore ba tshwanetse gore ba tlhophiwa yalo go ya ka molao wa ditlhopho o kwadilweng gore mongwe le mongwe o tshwanetse gore a o fitlhelele le threshold e ba e newang e lekane go le e beetsweng makoko a dipolotiki mme bo ntlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi re batla go itse gore ha ba na le madi a go duela a tswa kae ga re batle gore e nna a tswang ko dinageng tsa boditšhabatšhaba ga re batle gore dinaga di se di tla go laola naga ya rona ka jalo lona jaaka komiti re le kopa gore le nneng le karolo ya go nna baokamedi ba IEC go bona gore dilo di dirwa ka tshwanelo ke a leboga.
Thank you. The next and last speaker.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My name is Valentine Sankhani. I'm a resident of Mokaka, Ward 16 in particular, and a member of the ANC. Chair, my point of departure is that the Constitutional Court, in allowing independents to participate in provincial and national elections, was just a step in enhancing democracy. At the same time, it confirmed the current state of electoral regime in our country. That electoral regime is based on proportional representation. The PR system has a way of accommodating even minority parties. And therefore, the Constitutional Court was not in any way proposing that the PR regime must be changed. All what the Constitutional Court was saying was that allow independents to join this particular regime. Now, if they join this particular regime, it means that they must be treated like parties in this particular regime. They don't come in as special participants, but as parties. Therefore, in terms of qualifying to stand, the same qualifications that apply for parties must apply for them. In terms of allocation of seats using the PR formula, the same formula must apply for them. When they have more seats, the formula says the party that comes next, not the person, not the candidate. It means that if they get more than the required threshold, their seats will then be allocated to another party, not to themselves. Therefore, firstly, we support the PR principle, and they must fall in line with the PR principle. Secondly, Chairperson, the issue of funding. We know that the Political Party Funding Act allows funders to fund multiple parties. A funder can fund ANC 100,000, fund DA, and so on and so on and so on. However, we propose that we need to have a regime in terms of independence, whether a single funder can fund a particular number of independents. Avoid a situation where a billionaire will fund 1,000 independents and in reverse have a party under the guide of independence. We must come up with some regulation in terms of how much number of independents a particular donor can then fund. Already in terms of the party political funding disclosure, in that way we will avoid illicit funding of independents. The third point, Chair, my comrades have talked about the logistics in terms of the number of independents. If we don't make the qualifying criteria to be strict, you will have a long ballot paper, and a long ballot paper increases the potential of spoiled papers, which on itself is a result of unfair elections. The final point, Chair, is how do you then deal with those who short-circuit the processes? How do you then deal with those who cheat the processes? How do you then deal with those when we say they must have a particular number of signatures, then they forge them? Obviously, they must be disqualified. And we are saying that the committee must ensure that the IEC has got mechanisms, capacity, and ability to deal with those issues. We are endorsing the bill. Chairperson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo leina la me ke nna Valentine Sankhani ebile ke leloko la ANC Ntlha e ke rata go e tlhagisa fano fa ke gore yes re amogela molaotlhomo ono fela jaaka o ntse ka lebaka la gore ke ntlha e ke rata go simolola ka yone e dumelwang ke molaotheo wa rona wa naga wa gore bontlhopheng ba ba ikemetseng ka nosi ba ka kgona go tsena mo kokoaneng mo setšhaba le mo teng ga kgotlatheo molao. Ke selo go dirwa jalo ke tsa gore ke kgatelopele e ntle mo nageng ya rona ebile seno se dumelelwa ke molao wa rona wa boitshwaro wa ditlhopho. PR system e re ntse re bua ka yone ga se gore tota kgotlatshekelo ya rona ya molaotheo tota e ne e tla ka dintlha dipe fela tse dišwa e ne e sa tshitshinye phetogo epe fano e ne e re fela a ba letlwe gore bontlhopheng ba ikemetseng ka nosi le bone ba letle go tsenela ditlhopho tseno tse mme ba tshwarwa ka mokgwa o tshwanang fela le o makoko a dipolotiki a tshwarwang ka one ka mantswe a mangwe go se ke ga nna le phetogo moo ba nne le ditshwanelego tse di tshwanang fela le tse ba makoko a dipolotiki le bone ba nang le tsona. And then malebana le ditulo formula eno ya rona ya PR e tshwane mo go bone botlhe mme go se ka ga nna le diphetogo ha re tla mo kganyeng ya bobedi ya go tshegediwa ka ditšhelete ra dumela gore re batla go nna le tsamaiso e mo go yone ba ba tlamelang ka ditšhelete go nne le gore motho a le mongwe a ka kgona go tlamela kgotsa go tshegetsa diphathi tse di farologaneng tsa sepolotiki ka madi gongwe motho o mongwe a tshegetse ANC a tshegetse DA maybe a dirisa madi a kana ka sengwe se se tshwanang le 100,000 e nne fela kgang ya gore batho botlhe bao ba tshegediwang ka ditšhelete go dirwe jalo e seke ya nna bo di-billionaire ba ba tswang kwa dinageng tse dingwe ba batla go tshegetsa diphathi kgotsa bontlhopheng ba rona e le gore dilo re tla re kgone go tila boferefere bo botleng bo nne teng ga re tla mo kganya ya go tshegediwa ga batho ka ditšhelete jaanong ntlha ya bofelo modulasetulo ke re ya boraro gape go le shebiwe le ditshwanelego tsa bone ya bofelo re batle tsela ya go tila boferefere the cheating processes e ba bang ba nang le yone le gore palo ya di-signature tse di batlegang batho ba seka ba ya go itirela tsa bone re sa le bothata jono morago re kgone go bofedisa ka lone lebaka leo re batla gore IEC e nne le go okamelwa gore e tle e kgone go matlafadiwa gore e kgone go fedisa bothata jono ya leboga.
Thank you. As indicated, that was the second and last round of hands. Therefore, we have come to the conclusion of this meeting. All views or submissions that have been made in this meeting would be taken into consideration by the Portfolio Committee of Home Affairs when it finalizes this Electoral Amendment Bill. Therefore, all clarity-seeking questions or questions that have been raised from the floor, noted from speakers, would be flagged by the committee and be considered when it debates this matter. As I've indicated when we started, I'm not the only one. My colleagues on the table were also noting, so that when we get to the committee and finalizes this matter, they're able to raise issues that this hearing has made. Therefore, I would like to say thank you to everyone who has taken opportunity to come through and make submissions towards the Amendment Electoral Bill. Therefore, this concludes and adjourns our meeting. Thank you.